Yeah, so we are recording. So in the so one of the common use cases, you import an existing API specification which is built in OS 3 into your designer, and then you can publish it to Exchange, and then from Exchange you can also import it in your studio and you start scaffolding it. That's one of the common example. You can build an API specification ground up in OS 3 using in API Designer, and you can use both the formats. You can use the YAML format or you can use the JSON format. Both formats are supported syntactically in API Designer. You can import OS 3 specifications into Exchange, and Exchange would support that. The only thing that I would say here is one common question comes up, so I'll say this up front. Uh, so we behind the scenes we use something called an AMF framework that can convert OS to RAML. So until up till OS 2, we had some 100% compatibility. So we can say that we can convert OS 3 to RAML, RAML to OS 3, and vice versa. RAML to OS 2, OS 2 to RAML, and vice versa. What we cannot do now is that if you have a spec in RAML, you cannot transfer it into OS 3 as of now. You cannot do that. So that is a limitation at this point, and we have to see if we can enhance our features to accommodate that in the near future. Then, as I mentioned, you can build your APIs using OS 3. So after February, we have this phase 2 going live. So now you can actually build your APIs in OS 3. So now you don't have to really convert to OS to RAML if you have to build your API specifications. You don't have to do that. You can import, you can create ground up, and then you can keep working with that same API specification into the studio, scaffolding your APIs and building your APIs out. And you also can build, apply your policies on the API manager using the OS 3 based APIs, the specifications which are built in OS 3. I try to do this exercise of what are some of the features that are there in OS 3, and what are some of the features which are there in RAML, and how they are inherently different. Now I'll try to go this quickly so that we can have more time for our demo. But the idea is that we need to understand that RAML and OS 3 are very different in the sense that they were built by two different communities, and RAML have some. I would say RAML have some benefits that OS 3 do not have at this point of time. For example, the way you can modularize a RAML, we don't have that level of. So, for example, you can build RAML fragments, and you can upload that in Exchange, and so you can use those RAML fragments as building blocks. OS 3 have a similar. OS 3 doesn't exactly have a similar kind of a thing. They have something called an overlay, which is a slightly different concept, but you can ultimately give your source as a reference in OS 3. And so they have something called an extension. So in a similar way that you can give a source and a reference. You have in RAML you can give extends. So you can extend that in OS 3. You can extend another RAML, or you can also include another RAML. There are two different ways to do that. So again, as I mentioned, libraries and fragments. You can include something in OS in our RAML, or you can extend some features in RAML. In OS 3, everything all you can do is you do an existing through a ref tag, or you can use components feature in OS 3. So they're similar, but not exactly same. So again, we have so this is kind of the same thing, the libraries and fragments. So the way we have fragments in RAML, we have a similar concept of having library in OS 3, and we can point to that as a reference in OS 3, the way we are building it out. So they are again similar in nature, but not exactly same. The other thing that I would want to also mention here is that resources and traits, resource types and traits are something which is inherently RAML specific, and you don't have something of a similar thing in OS 3. So if you want to, summarize this, I mean, it can be a little bit biased, but my opinion is that OS 3 is good enough for design, but is not as good as RAML, in the sense that the reusability feature is still not there yet with OS 3 as it is with RAML, and there are some limitations in terms of you cannot build traits the way you build in RAML. There is something which is not really the exactly same. We call it OS cursors. You can use that in OS 3, but traits and cursors are not exactly the same thing. And the other thing that I would say that's on the advantage of the OS 3 side is that they have these two features called callbacks and links. Callbacks is I think is a powerful feature which supports async API, so which is not there in RAML yet, and that is probably one of the reasons that we have to do some level of coding to really come up with supporting that particular feature. So with this, I wanted to intentionally keep some time to hand it over to Ravi, and Ravi Padmanabhar from my team can take over and share a small demo. Ravi, can you see if you can share your screen now? You may be muted. Okay. 1 minute, Ravi.
Hello, Prasanjit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Prasanjit. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. I appreciate you spending time today here with the Chicago Meetup, especially with so many things going around us. So thanks for joining. My name is Ravi Padmanabhar. I'm a part of a customer success group. I work along with Prasanjit. And today I would be going to the demo on the OAS 3. So let me go ahead and share my screen and give me a heads up once you see it.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, awesome. Let me also start my video. Okay, great. Okay, so the objective of this particular demo is to help you understand what are the capabilities of the Anypoint Studio, which is basically to provide a single unified tool for designing, mocking, implementing, testing, and also deploying an OAS 3 API. So that would be the main objective of this presentation. To do that, we're going to consider a particular use case, a very simple use case, that is that you have been requested to implement an order system API, which is expected to unlock order data from the underlying SAP system. Also, your organization follows a standard OAS 3.0 standard and expects you to design a specification using that. As a part of the solution, let's look out from different personas. One that is usually performed by a MuleSoft architect or lead who is responsible for designing and his order API specification in Anypoint Studio, and then eventually syncing it up with the design center. Once the API specification design is complete, then the architect or the lead would be publishing this particular API to both Anypoint Exchange. And if we have some time remaining after the end of this demonstration, I'll also showcase you how that can be published to Anypoint Community Manager. These API that have been published to the Design Center could also be updated in your Anypoint Studio based on the feedback that I've received from your API consumer, be it be internal or external. And then you can improvise on the API specification. Once this groundwork of the designing is done by the MuleSoft architect or lead, then comes up the software developer or MuleSoft developers role over here would be responsible for developing a base code which we call as scaffolding using the API kit and the order API specification that we have developed. Once the base code is created, we would go ahead and implement the business logic in the Anypoint Studio. Again, for the sake of this demonstration, we are not going to have an actual logic which connects to an underlying SAP system. We would just have a pseudo logic implementation over there. And then we would test it and deploy that particular API to the Cloud Hub all through the API, the Anypoint Studio itself. We would not be going out of it, Anypoint Studio. I might show you how it looks like on an Anypoint platform, but all these activities that I talked about will be performing in the Anypoint Studio itself. So this gives you a unique ability for doing all of these activities through the studio, and gives a good developer experience. At the end, we will also create an API endpoint in API Manager, and then apply a very simple policy, such as rate limit, to demonstrate that the APIs that you have defined and developed using OAS 3.0 could also be managed via an API Manager too. I know it's a lot of things to cover in just the next 20-25 minutes. And what I would be doing is that I would be sharing your reference material related to this specific exercise shortly in the chat, and you can go through it later on. And you can run through this exercise yourself. So let's get started. I have currently installed the latest version of Anypoint Studio 7.8. And we would be doing this demo on MuleSoft server, Mule server 4.3. To create a new API specification, go to the file, say new API specification project. I'm going to call this API specification as order SAPI-spec, and I'm going to leverage OAS 3.0 to define this specification. Again, you have different options as Prasanjit mentioned, and you can use any of these options, but I'm going to use the OAS 3 YAML way to define this specification. Now, one important thing to note is that I'm already connected to my Anypoint platform. Basically, my studio, which is running on my laptop, is connected to the Anypoint platform. And once I click on the finish button, what is going to happen is that this particular API specification project that's getting created would be created on entirely on your workspace first, in your studio, on a local workspace. Also, it is going to push the same code to the design center's repo under a master branch. So what you see over here is a master branch. Okay, so let me, and once it does, it is also asking us to change the perspective to the API design perspective from a default Mule design perspective. So this is a default an API spec that got created through this activity. On the right-hand side, what you see is an API console. This automatically gets shown once this perspective is changed. Let me go quickly to the design center and show you what really happened on the design center. Okay. As soon as that particular project got created on a local machine, and because you are connected to your Anypoint platform account, it did create an order SAPI specification in your design center, and you can click on it and look at the specification, how it looks like. It would be the basic code that got generated on the studio. Now, what we are going to do is that we are going to, update this particular API specification. And for the sake of the demo and in the interest of the time, I've already created this OAS 3.0 specification. I'm going to just copy paste and give you a highlight about what the specification has. Again, this is just for demonstration purpose. The actual order API might look very complex and would have multiple data in it. So please be aware of that. Okay. So what I did was I just copy pasted this order API specification. This API specification has a resource called as order defined over here. And I've exposed the HTTP GET method, which is basically saying that this would return back the details of an order based upon an order ID, which is passed as an URI parameter. This follows all the same construct that the OAS 3.0 specification says. This is how you define a parameter. And I've also defined a 200 response in a JSON format with an example mentioned over here. Now, as you see, as soon as I put this particular information, again, this tool is again supports auto suggestion for you to help develop creation of this, in this text editor very fastly. But as soon as you do that, you would see that on the right-hand side in the API console, the information gets reflected in the real time. Now, once a file with the changes, you would notice that there has been a change in the file which is being tracked as a part of your Git staging view. As you know, in the recent releases of Anypoint Studio, eGit plugin comes along with that. And that is the one which is showing you a difference between the original changed file and the new file over here. I'm going to add it to the staged one, and I'm going to check in this particular spec which I've updated with a new operation into my design center. Okay, so here you would see that it's showing me my credentials, the design center or Anypoint platform credentials. And once I hit on commit and push it, it's going to push that entire information to the design center. So let's quickly go back and look at the design center. I'm going to just refresh this, and as soon as I do that, you would see that the changes have been reflected in the design center as well. Okay, going back to the studio. Now, what we really did in the studio is just design a specification. Now, as what you would like to do is that you would like to publish this specification to the exchange. And the way to do it is pretty straightforward. You can right-click on this and go to the Manage API specification and publish this to the exchange. Okay. Now, before that, I would like to show one step which I missed, and that is that once you have checked in this particular code to the design center, you can enable the mocking service by just clicking on this particular button on the top right corner. And as soon as the mocking service is enabled, you would be able to test out these API endpoint pretty easily, just like you do it on the API console. Again, it's the same API console that was shown on the browser is now available to you inside your inside your studio itself, where you'll be able to try this particular operation, which would basically hit the mocking service that is running on this particular endpoint. And when you hit it, it will give you back a response, which is basically a response from your code that has been written, example that you have mentioned in the specification. Now, once this all testing is done and an architect tests this and knows that this is looking good, then you would publish it to the exchange. And the way to do it is to select the Manage API specification and click on Publish to Exchange. This will actually pop up a window for you to define what this specification name would be. Again, remember that the design center on the side of design center is where your actual file of your YAML file, your exchange JSON file would reside. However, when you want to publish it to the exchange, it's basically the exchange is nothing but a Nexus repo, and it's going to publish a zip version of this specification. I'm going to just give the asset version over here following the semantic versioning, and I'm going to click on the finish button, which will basically publish it to the exchange. So again, this is possible only because you are connected to your Anypoint platform account, and that's how it knows where to publish this. And let's go quickly to the exchange and see what really happened on the exchange. Still publishing from my local machine. Okay, we got this. So there are two things that get created. Is a REST API specification that you published, and along with that, by default, the platform allows you to publishes a connector associated with this order system API. So we are going to focus more on the REST API part of it in the specification. You can go over here, I'll go over and just change the name for better readability. I'll call it as order SAPI. You see exactly the same information over here that the get operation has been exposed. You'll be able to mock this one because the mocking service is already enabled over here. And now if you want to publish this to an external portal of Exchange, you have to go to the share button, select this public tab, and check on this particular button and save it. As soon as you do it, this particular API is not only accessible to the people who are in your company and having access to Anypoint platform, but also it is available on the public website of Exchange. And to do that, go to Exchange and click on the public portal, and you would see that it displays the orders API. So this completes the publication of an API that you have designed to an Exchange. And if time permits, I'll show you how to make it visible on the AC and there's Anypoint Community Manager as well, which serves an entirely different purpose than the Exchange. So let's go back to the studio again. Now, once the specification has been created and published, you would get a feedback. And once you get a feedback, you would probably come back and make some changes, and you can still continue doing the changes in the studio, and then eventually you publish your acceptable version or the ideal version of the spec, and start then give an indication to a developer that this API spec is now ready for an implementation part. And that's where a developer would come in and start creating an API implementation for this. The way to do that is you go to the file, say new, and say Mule project. Now this Mule project, I'm going to call it as order SAPI. SAPI stands for System API. That's a convention because it extracts the data from its system, order data from the underlying system. I'm going to use Mule 4.3, and I'm going to rely on the already published OAS 3 specification, which is in the Exchange. So I'm going to add that from an Exchange, search it with the order SAPI. As soon as I do that, you would see that the order API SAPI comes up over here. I'll select this one, add to my code project that's going to be generated, and click on finish. And then I'm also going to click on this finish. Now, what is really happening is that as soon as you do this, internally it's using API Kit module and the order specification that was just created to build a base code for you to give a kickstart. Now, this base code that's been built is based upon the specification that's been defined, the examples that you have given, what the resources looks like. And let's look at what base code was generated out of it. What you see here is that there are two important flows that get generated by default for any specification that you develop. The first is a main flow, which has basically a logic for routing your request to different resources or API endpoints. This gets auto-generated. Along with that, you have a console flow that helps you to display the API console. The console that we saw earlier when the specification was designed on the right-hand side of the screen. That is what is generated using this particular component. Okay, and based on how many endpoints that you have created, you would have one flow each. And because we have only one endpoint, you would see that it got created over here. And this is a base code, and if you see the response is actually based upon what example you have defined. For the sake of this exercise, we are not going to connect to this SAP system. We'll assume that we've got connected to the SAP system. You massage the response back, and then you actually responded back with a very simple response. Okay, so I'll just say something over here and save it. This completes an activity of a development. Then you would go ahead, probably develop your Anypoint unit test over there. You would also test it functionally by running it locally and everything. And once this is ready, you can directly publish this particular project and deploy. Sorry, you would deploy this particular project directly to the Cloud Hub. Before we do that activity, I would like to mention to you is that the API implementation, that project that you have created, would eventually reside upon your company's code repo, whether it be GitHub or GitLab, Bitbucket, or whatever you have it. It would be in that particular code repo, and again, you would have your own review processes, CI/CD processes that would eventually, merge and eventually deploy it into uh, Cloud Hub or any other deployment model that you have selected for your company or for this particular use case. For the time being, I'm going to demonstrate that how we can directly publish this particular implementation of the Order SAPI project directly into the Cloud Hub. And to do that, just right click on the project, select the select the API Anypoint Platform, and say deploy to Cloud Hub. Once you do this, it actually opens up a window which is exactly same as once you log into Anypoint Platform's account, and you would be able to see that it's actually trying to deploy Order SAPI application or API, and this is already available. We can deploy it only when it's not conflicting with any other API that's been deployed because it's a shared domain. And I'm just going to select deploy here without looking into the other details over here. Now, so far, what we have seen is that it takes a couple of minutes for this to actually deploy this. So meanwhile, what we have seen so far is that how to design an API in OAS 3, how to publish it to Exchange, and import that published API specification into your Anypoint Studio, build a base code automatically, and then start developing on the top of that Kickstart code that you get. And eventually, once the development is done, you would do a testing of it, unit testing, and then you would be once you are done, you would be publishing it or deploying it into the Cloud Hub. So I'm going to just open this browser, opening the browser to show particular app or API is still getting deployed. You can see it in the runtime manager. Um, it still says deploying. If you go to the logs section of it, you would see that the worker is still being set up. And once it is deployed in another 1 minute or so, you'll be able to call that particular order API and get back the response. So let's wait for that. Um, Again, I know there's a lot to take in such a short, demonstration. I would be sending you those links at the end of the call. You can follow them and you can start implementing that same exercise very easily, taking your own time. So I'm just waiting for this to complete. Okay, I think we are almost there. Now, just want to showcase you that this is an order API specification. I've deployed it on the region US East. The default 1 week code that's with a test training account that we get over here. And once it's deployed, it shows that this is the application URL where you'll be able to hit that particular endpoint and get back the data. This is the endpoint that we'll be hitting right now to get back that response. So as soon as we do that, we see that we got this particular response back over here. You can keep on hitting this and you would still get the same response back. Because we don't have any specific logic, you can change anything over here because we have dummy logic, still returns back the same information. But this completes a developer's activity of deploying an application to the cloud hub. Next up is how would you secure this OS API that you have created and deployed using the API manager? To do that, let's go to the API manager in your Anypoint Platform account and say manage API. You click on manage API from Exchange. So what you're basically trying to do over here is that you're trying to manage this API you select that order API and you say that you want to deploy it as a proc on a cloud hub environment, and your base URL would be the implementation. It's running on the cloud hub. click on the save button. And as soon as you click on the save button, go to this deployment configuration where you want to actually select what kind of proxy you want to deploy and what name you would like to, and click on the deploy button. So what this really doing is that it's basically a templated application that resides on a MuleSoft side and creates a proxy application by the name order-sapi-proxy, and would be pointing to the backend implement, basically running, or which is the one that's running your order SAPI application. Again, this also is getting deployed on your runtime manager. So let me go and quickly show you that runtime manager here. You would see, like, just like the application was getting deployed, your proxy is also getting deployed. It will take a couple of minutes for this one to deploy. And once it gets deployed, what we are going to do is that we are going to apply the rate limit policy to demonstrate that you can secure and manage this OAS 3 API in your API manager. So till this gets deployed, let's go to that API. See, I'm going to add a very simple policy, rate limit policy. Again, the basic rule here that I'm going to put is that I'm going to just allow one request per minute. That's it. If there are more requests that are coming into this particular API through the proxy would block it off. The proxy would say that exceeded the quota limit. So I'm going to apply this one. It's still showing deploying. Right now, what happens is that once the application is properly deployed, then it would be tied to that particular backend endpoint, and it will show it as active. And right now, it is active. Okay. So I'm going to go back to open a new browser and an endpoint which talks about the endpoint for the proxy, not that of your application or implementation URL, and hit this particular endpoint. As soon as I hit this endpoint, what really is happening is applying your API policies, checking whether any policy is violated or not. And because this is it is fine, it goes through it, it hits the backend endpoint and gets back the response. If I try one more time within that 1 minute, it shows that your API calls have exceeded, and it doesn't let you continue, that doesn't give you a response until that 1 minute window gets expired. So again, this is just a specific rate limit policy that I've explained. And because of this is purely to demonstrate that we are able to successfully manage an API through this API manager. So with that, what we have demonstrated so far is that we are using Anypoint Studio. We are able to design, develop, publish it to the exchange, and deploy to cloud web environment. So that's all from a demo standpoint. I know it is a lot to take. I would just go ahead and share that particular information that I was talking about earlier, which would be very valuable for you, if you want to do the same exercise on your side. Also, another thing to note is that there is a very good website called as osapi.tools, where you would find all the tools that are being used underlying, or are being used by MuleSoft but other platforms to implement this logic of mocking or scaffolding, etc. So if you're interested, you can play around with that. So with that, I'm done with my demo. I know you would have a lot of questions over here. I would open up for questions now. Then we'll quickly jump into the trivia, because I know you're all eagerly waiting for that. Any questions?
Thank you, Ravi, for such an amazing demo.
Sure. Okay.
Let's go into the trivia questions, because I know the time is short, and we will go through the trivia questions fast. So you can continue. You can continue with the slide, and I will continue. I will monitor the chat. Ravi, can you quickly share the site that you mentioned on the OS 3 tools? Chala is asking for that.
Yep, we'll do that in two chat messages because it's too big for that.
Awesome, awesome, and yeah, we can share the slide as well. So I think it's time for the trivia questions now, and let me let me clear up the chat a little bit. So here it goes. The first question, you need to type your answers in the chat. You need to type your answers. The first correct answer. So we'll give a couple of minutes and you can see some. Okay, obviously we have a lot of responses already. So let's show the answer. Yeah, so B is the correct answer, and we can see that Subramaniam Vimpati got the first right. Although it's probably in a split second difference, but we have to use some tool to measure this. So I'll mark it up now, and then we will go for the next question. So please be ready. Here comes question. Okay, OS 3 specifications can be defined in which all of the form. Okay, I think we have quite some answers. Yeah. Can we share the response? The correct answer. Yeah, the correct answer is C. And so Chala, Ravi, he got the first correct answer. So, okay, Chala, can you DM me your email? At the same time, Subramanian Vempati, can you DM me your email address, please? Forgot to mention that. Sorry. Uh, Please DM me your email address. We'll go to the next question. Uh, so this is
I just intentionally put a lot of information over here.
yeah. At least it should take
Process.
some time to read. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I think we have good amount of answers. So maybe we can switch over to the next one, to the answer basically. Yeah, the answer is D. And so Dan Hines got the. Dan, how did you read all those in that split second? But that's great. Dan, can you share your email? Can you DM your email to me?
Congratulations for all the winners. Good job.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I got the emails. Thank you for that. So, wow, that was quick. So I know. So thank you for the participation, folks. And so let us know how you felt and your feedback on the meetup. We will share the recording as a YouTube video. It takes a little bit of time to come up, so we will share the YouTube video and also we'll share probably the slide deck. And if you have any suggestions, please reach out to me directly. You have my email address. And thank you for your participation on the Chicago MuleSoft Meetup. We can take some questions if you have any questions because we have a little bit of time. I know there were some questions directly in the chat, and I made I um, I answered those. But if you have any other questions, go ahead. Um, Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you for the feedback. Any questions? We'll probably just keep 1 more minute open just to see if you have any questions, and then we will close this out. I'm just taking note of.
Kalyani, I see that you have asked a question. I'm new to MuleSoft. Please explain what's the difference between a runtime and API manager and why we need proxies. So, Prasanjit, would you like to take that or?
Yeah. Can you take that? I'm just making some documentation and just document. Or yeah.
Sure, I can take that.
You can take it. Yeah.
So, Kalyani, runtime is when you say runtime, it's basically a Mule runtime where your Mule application is actually up and running. And when this Mule application is running, right? Let's say there are other aspects of the application like security, logging, or some kind of you want to manage those some aspects which are different from your business logic. And to manage that, if you keep on going to your application all the time, what happens is that you have to make so many changes. It's not an efficient way to manage it. So what we do is that when usually it's a standard architecture pattern. What we do is that you let your applications or your logic be running on your runtimes, whether it's a Java, again, new runtime, whatever it is, and then you manage that up those endpoints using the API manager or API management tool. There are different API management tools. MuleSoft's API management tool is a API manager through which you can apply different policies like on the security policy, logging policy, or you want to block certain IP address and effectively manage and govern those particular endpoints. And that's basically the difference between that.
Okay. Yeah, to add, MuleSoft is basically an integration platform as a service with an API manager. Because MuleSoft's POV around integration is that integration, you can get value of your integration only, not only, but you'd say mostly if you expose those integrations as APIs so that the integrations become reusable. So when we say that you expose those integration as APIs, we recommend that you have a central place to for governance of your APIs, and that's the API manager for you. Okay, thank you, folks, for a meetup. Thank you, Ravi, for an outstanding demo, and we'll see you in the next meetup. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.